Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wrap Up. Thank you for joining us after the Raptors defeated the Washington Wizards by a score that I'm pulling up right now. Really an embarrassing loss for the Wizards. Anyway, you wanna chalk it up. The Raptors' third stringers beat the Wizards' first stringers. I'm joined by Adon Moss. Adon, I want to get right to the most important thing right off the bat. The most important question that everyone wants to know, and that is Kyrie right? I'm just joking. He's obviously wrong. But yeah, Aiden, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Happy to finally debut together.
Yeah, look at us thriving.
I know.
So this will be a regular part of the rotation. The wrap-up squad that you'll be seeing us a lot in the regular season, and Sahal will also be joining us a lot. And I apologize for the glare of my light, by the way.
Yeah, it looks like you've come down from heaven to grace us.
Yeah, that is. I mean,
Oh.
I do like the halo effect, to be honest. But yeah, it'll be us, Sahal, and then I'm sure Zarar will be around and some other Raptors Republic people as well. But that'll kind of be the bulk of it, and we're going to try to go after every game. So thanks for joining us. The Raptors beat the Wizards 113-108. Honestly, a pretty impressive game for the Raptors. I think they've gotten better as training camp has kind of gone on here. But, we'll talk a bit about the game, and we'll also just talk about general preseason storylines that we've seen here now that this was the last preseason game. But just in terms of this game, what stood out to you today? Is there anything that you want to talk about specifically about this game?
I mean, we could talk about Barnes forever, probably, but they talk about certain guys creating a centrifugal force, and Barnes he creates like an ecosystem. It's like wherever he is or whenever he's on the court, it just the game changes all around. And you saw that on the defensive end, you saw that on the offensive end, whether it was making passes or making little floaters, and it changed the energy of the game. Like Washington really struggled with the energy he created and energy that him and Precious brought together in that front court.
Yeah, sorry, man. I was just dealing with that Zoom thing that I was saying.
That's okay.
But yeah.
So my point is that it was cool to see him kind of like with the reins off, right? There's no Van Vliet, there's no OG. It's just kind of like letting Scotty do his thing, and he did it well. He did it with the kind of a veteran presence. He chose his moments. He controlled the tempo.
No, for sure. I think it was probably Scotty's best game of the preseason. Maybe the first one you could argue was, but he really got hot, I think, for the first time scoring wise that we've seen from him in the second quarter, like the end of it when he went on this little run. And it was impressive. I have a story coming out tomorrow about kind of preseason standouts, right? And one of the things that I talked about is everyone said after the draft that Scotty, okay, fine, you took him over Suggs, do you, Raptors, but you're warned, he's very raw, he's not going to help you win right away, right? You kept hearing the word raw, and the offensive game is raw, or I should say the scoring is raw, but he's not as raw as I thought he would be. I don't know about your expectations going into preseason, but Scotty is a rotation player right away. He's going to play big minutes right away, not because he's the fourth pick. It's not because he's such a big investment necessarily. It's because he's actually deserving of NBA minutes, right?
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen over the course of the couple of games, even if he's not scoring, you can go to him in the high post or the low post, and he's making the right pass immediately. He changes the dynamics of their offense, but then he can also have the ball and kind of create for himself at the same time, like we saw today. And then if nothing's working, at the very least, you have the defense. Like we saw against Houston, Jalen Green just disappeared. OG took his soul and put it in a little box and hit it away for 48 minutes. Whereas
Yeah.
Scotty can, screw up a couple of times and then he's right there at the baseline picking up his man and working on D. So, I mean, he earns his minutes regardless of how he succeeds offensively.
Yeah, I don't have the pass here of his bouncer to Precious, but that's it. It's like defense, transition offense, and playmaking. He does those 3 things well enough, I think, to just be an NBA player.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the scoring, the jump shot is not great, but like we see these flashes of oh, there it is. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a special pass. But we see the glimpses of the jump shot. Like his touch is much better than I expected. Like the 3-pointer is not there. He has not made one in preseason. But the touch in the mid range and the restricted, like even in like the kind of long 2 distance area is really nice.
Yeah.
And that's like when he's playing, especially with the starters, he's not going to have a lot of opportunity to do those things. Like that's fine.
No.
This season, he won't be taking a lot of self-created shots, but looking forward, the fact that the touch is there is really promising.
Well, I also like that he can come on, come off early and maybe come on with the second unit and have a little bit more of an influence offensively. I
Yeah,
think when other teams kind of pick up on his style of play, he's not going to have all that time to shoot those mid-range jumpers. He takes so long to kind of like dial in and get his release off, and so but it's good to see that he's improved from pre-draft to now.
yeah. He's definitely improved, and I think a lot of guys have improved. Um, and I think, before we get into the question of the starters, because I do want to talk to you about some of those questions. Before we do that, let's do like the camp battles, the end of
Oh,
rotation
yeah,
battles, who gets the final 3 spots on the roster. Like in the media call today, Nurse basically said that stuff was going to be decided after tonight. They're not going to like let it linger. So I'm confident it'll be announced either tonight or tomorrow. So I think we would both agree that Utah is a lock, right?
100%.
Utah had a great Olympics and then into a great first game of summer league or
Yeah,
preseason. Sorry, I keep thinking summer league.
it
And
basically is.
yeah, he's a lock. He's not even just a lock, he's a rotation guy.
Yeah,
But
and
so the final, yeah, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, like the next game when he was injured, you saw the second unit kind of like falter a little bit without him there to glue it all together.
Yeah. And honestly, like the 3 looks great, but the playmaking was the thing that I just never saw last year. And he made some great passes in the first
Yeah,
preseason game. The game's just slowing down for him. So the final, like 2 spots, there's 5 players competing. It's Freddie Gillespie. Let me get this right. Sam Decker, Ishmael Wainwright, Reggie
Bonga.
Perry, and Isaac Bonga. Yeah. So who would you? I guess who do you think the Raptors are going to take, and or who would you take?
Well, I think like Sam T just said, like there has been nothing over the course of the 4 games and summer league that tells me Gillespie has a chance.
Yeah.
He finally he made a block today, and then he had another good defensive possession. And that was like the first time that I kind of was like, oh, fine, like Gillespie's doing something here. So I think he's done. He also he doesn't have the athleticism to fit into the defensive scheme that they want. He's
Mhm.
always kind of just like lumbering into people and tripping over everybody because he's late. So I think Gillespie's done. I mean, I thought for sure Decker was done until this fourth quarter, but I still kind of think he is. He doesn't have really anything to offer except for that shot. He seems slower than what I remember him in the NBA, and he's very linear in his movement. So I would say those 2 for sure I would cut.
Sorry, Gillespie, and who was the second?
Decker.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Bonga's got the youth. He has length. He has the athleticism. He can ball handle. I think there's just so much room for him to grow. And then I think Ish is good for the locker room. Like I think in practice he probably throws a lot of bows and hurts a lot of people. But also is like a good guy and a good leader. And I'm partial to seeing a big ass on the court. Like losing Lowry and now having a nice round bum to
Yeah.
look at is like it makes me feel a little bit more at peace.
Yeah, he got in like a little scrap in at the end of the first half, and like he walked away, and his pants were pulled so high, and his shirt was so tightly tucked in. I was just like, what is this Kyle Lowry cosplay going on right now? But yeah, I agree with that for the most part. Like heading into camp, I thought Wainwright had the edge on a spot for those reasons, like the locker room stuff. He seems like a great kind of vet, older guy to have around. But that was like a couple of weeks ago. I feel like things were a little more like hostile or whatever around the Raptors. Like we weren't sure who was going to fill the leadership void. We weren't sure how Pascal was going to like handle things. And right now the vibes seem really good. I don't think they need to make a decision based off like a locker room guy kind of.
No.
Um, but I think Nick hates bleeding points so much that even though Decker is a better offensive player than Wainwright, he makes mistakes. Even today, like he was on fire from three. He did everything he possibly could to earn that spot on the offensive end, but defensively, he showed the fatigue that those threes were taking, and he was just like making a lot of mistakes, and they were bleeding points because of it. So I would agree it's Bonga and Wainwright if I had to guess. Although I would probably take Decker over Wainwright just because the team is so light on shooting.
But Wainwright can hit that too. I mean, against Houston, he walked onto the court and immediately hit two corner threes. Like I
Yeah.
think he does provide that, and yeah. So I mean, it's a difference of opinion, but I don't know. I just yeah,
Well,
I,
he has the corner three, but he doesn't really have the same versatility
he
as
doesn't have
Decker.
the depth, the length, no, or the depth on the
Yeah,
arc. You're right.
or really the movement. I just think, and the sample size is also pretty small in terms of him being a good three-point shooter. Like I'm not
Sure.
sure that he will be, but at the end of the day, it's the 15th spot.
Yeah. Well, and that leads me to asking, like, is it worthwhile to just leave the spot open?
No, I don't think so because you can always like at
Cut them.
least with Wainwright, his guarantee date isn't until like 45 days into the season or something.
Yeah.
So they might as well keep him until then and because they don't have to pay anything extra until then. Um, but yeah, I think you might as well have 15 guys on the roster and then once the trade deadline rolls around, that's when you can kind of waive guys if you need to.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like I mean, that leads us kind of into another topic, which is Goran Dragic, who
Yeah,
I think
baby.
I saw your tweet. I think he'll get traded this season. Do you not think they should trade him?
I don't know whether we trade him or not is kind of not the point. I'm just saying there was such an overreaction to getting him and so much disappointment. And I'm just saying is he's still a very valuable player, especially with the secondary unit. Like he fit for a shorter, less athletic guy. He actually fits our system quite well. He's pretty tenacious. He penetrates. He can spot up and shoot. And he just kind of got that like gritty attitude.
Yeah.
I think going to the down to the deadline, it'll depend what offers are out there. I don't want Dwight Powell in some seconds, but and depending on our record too. Like if we're making a run for the 7 or 6 seed, like I say, screw it and keep him.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I think the idea of freeing up minutes is like the most attractive part to me more than anything
Mm,
because they're not winning a championship this season. So I think even if you are only getting back a couple seconds, you're giving, Malachi, Banton, even like Svi and Trent more minutes. And
true.
I think that's worth it because I don't know, like Decker, I mean, not Decker. Dragic is looking he looked good today, and I think he'll look good in spurts. And I actually like speaking of the starting lineup, which is what I want to get into. I think why am I doing this? The two white guys
Dragic.
on the team, like
Yeah.
I think Dragic will really help whoever the backup point guard is. And
Yeah.
right now it is a little unclear if that's going to be Banton or Flynn. Um I think probably Flynn has the edge, but I think regardless of who it is, Dragic is gonna really help that player. And for that reason, I think it makes a ton of sense for him to come off the bench and for Trent to start. Where are you with like the two guard?
So my only problem with Trent coming off the bench is I don't know that I like him and Malachi together.
No, that's what I was saying. I'm saying Dragic comes off the bench and Trent
Oh,
starts.
I'm sorry. Yeah, misunderstood. I 100% agree. I think,
Okay.
like I said earlier, Dragic can play off ball quite easily. And the argument, even though we're not going to win the championship, but the argument for keeping Dragic around is that leadership and kind of like that ability to keep things afloat when shit hits the fan, especially in the half court, and he can bear the brunt of that both like psychologically and also like mechanically in the game. And I feel like Flynn's going to have those moments where he gets flustered and he gets overwhelmed, and
Mhm.
Dragic would be a nice, safety to that. So, but yeah, I do think I think he'll come off the bench and be a nice spark with the second unit.
Yeah, I mean, grape drinks comment. I mean, that's kind of the goal. That's why Jogic is going to get a fair share of minutes here in the first half of the season is because like if you can get the first round pick, that's like the ideal situation for the Raptors. Even if they need to take on money next year, it doesn't really matter because they don't have cap space anyways. So that would be, if Dragic can play himself into first round pick value, that's a huge win for the
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry trade. Precious also already looks like, better than we expected. But yeah, I think then we both agree that, Fred's at the 1, Trent's at the 2, OG's at the 3. And then it looks like Scotty is gonna start at the 4, partly because we haven't seen Chris Boucher, um, the whole preseason, so it's hard to really, like, assume that Scotty's gonna be bumped out of that. They'll probably bring Boucher off the bench, and then what about the 5 spot? Like,
Mm.
there's been a surprising amount and, like, not just in the Raptors fan base, like, the way Nick has talked about Precious, he's really made it seem like he could start, and he
Yeah.
already said that he's gonna play about the same minutes as Birch this season, like 24, more or less. That shocked me, to be honest, like, after handing Birch a 3-year, 30 however $1 million contract, I was like, "Oh, he's for sure the starting center," right? And he fit the system really well last year. Um and he's coming off COVID, so I'm not gonna judge any of his preseason play, even
Yeah.
though he hasn't looked great. But, please, let's not judge Birch by these last 2 games. He just had COVID, he had symptoms. He literally got out of health and safety 2 or 3 days ago, so he hasn't been able to do any basketball stuff. It would just be irresponsible. But, yeah, who do you think should start at the 5?
Well, I mean, if we're going objectively on what performance we're going to Chua, I think Birch also coming off the bench makes sense with Malachi also. Two of them both really rely on the pick and roll to kind of get their games going, whereas Precious is happy to just kind of go and do his own thing.
Mhm.
And it's kind of why he pairs well with Barnes too, because um, the two of them can kind of operate by themselves and kind of like these twin tower attacks. Whereas I think Birch is really reliant on the other guys on the floor as kind of like an anchor. So I think it makes sense lineup wise to bring him off the bench and start Precious, and Precious has earned it as well, obviously.
Yeah, my only worry about that idea because, that's a good point of the pick and roll stuff. A couple weeks ago, we wouldn't have said that because Precious came into camp and everyone thought he's a pick and roll guy right
Yeah,
now. All he's going to do is set screens and roll to the rim. And like he's really expanded his game and credit to him for showing what he has. Um, but I just worry that Precious doing that stuff with the starting group isn't gonna be the same as Precious
no,
doing it in preseason, like,
yeah,
Pascal's gonna look at him, turn the ball over, and be like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, me and OG are here, like, give us the fucking ball," you know?
yeah,
So I'm with Birch right now. I think by the end of the season, I could totally see Precious winning the spot, just pure skill alone, if he continues, like, this trajectory. But I think right now Birch makes sense. He's just more reliable two-way player to me.
yeah,
Like he's gonna do his role. He's not gonna make as many mistakes. Um, and I thought he just fit really well beside Siakam in particular last season when they did play together at the end of the year a little bit. So I'm with Birch, and they also just handed him a big contract to kind of be a starting center, presumably. I think he kind of earned it last season to start off the year, but I don't think anything is like guaranteed or anything going forward. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I think
agree.
it'll really depend on. This is obvious, but it'll depend on who we're playing too. I think, like, Birch had done will do better with bigger lineups, I think, than Precious will. But
Yeah. You mean like against bigger centers?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I asked Nick today, like, do you want a solid starting group or are you okay matching up depending on the thing? And he basically said, like, in an ideal world, he would have 7 or 8 guys kind of shuffling through the starting spots,
hmm
but in reality, it's just never works out that way because once guys get in, it's really hard to take them out. There's like a
yeah.
pride and ego thing and all that. So I'd be curious to see if they actually do that and play those guys matchup dependent, or if he kind of settles on one. But yeah,
The other thing with Precious, like, again, depending on who we're playing, you saw today him coming out on guards and like completely shutting
oh
them
yeah,
down off the switches, or like early on he denied that down screen and intercepted it. Like, that's stuff that few centers will do, if you want to call him a center. So I think when we're playing teams that are using the pick and roll at a higher rate, um, like a Golden State, for example, like he would play really well against a Draymond.
yeah. Precious really makes me excited about the future of this
Me
team
too.
because like, you look at the past, people, I don't know, small ball, whatever. You look at the past few finalists, the past 3 years, you kinda need, like, an elite center to be a final team. You
Yeah,
need a center who can play in a lot of different schemes and, like, not get played off the floor, kinda like Rudy Gobert does, but
yeah.
that's a more complicated issue, but, we haven't had that in quite a while, like,
Well,
even
Mark.
Mark is not even that in the sense that, like, there is certain teams who could probably play Mark off the floor, right?
Yeah,
But the team around him was just so good, and, like, Serge was there, that was a great starting combo, but I don't think either one of those guys was, like, perfect. And I think Precious, his trajectory really is like he could be that guy who you kind of depend on to like just play in any type of series. I'm talking 2, 3, 4 years down the line, but he's like I did not know he was this skilled and he had this this many just like things he could do at that size.
yeah. I mean, I said this last podcast. We saw it. If you watch Summer League and you watch the Olympics, it was coming. You know, but I mean, but the jump from the Olympics to now, and I think that's like Nurse's trust. He's given him the volume and the freedom to kind of just go, and he has.
Yeah,
There was one three. I think it was maybe against Houston. It was like 5 seconds into the shot clock, and he's jacking a three.
it
So
was. Yeah.
he's been given the liberty to kind of do that. I think defensively, this team's constructed to do it collectively. And Barnes, Siakam, kind of Achua back line is long enough and hazardous enough that I think it can make up for what it lacks in height.
Yeah, but you're forgetting, Delano Banton and his length. Like, dude, like, when he's on the floor with Barnes and this is actually something I wrote down, like, the Flynn versus Banton stuff, I've found to be really
Yes.
interesting.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it. Like, I don't know, I wrote something about it, and the basic premise was that, like, everyone will agree that Flynn is a more skilled, developed NBA player, right?
Yeah.
Like, he has an outside shot, he has a really tight dribble, he's a good player, but in the system that they are running, he does not fit nearly as good as Banton
No.
does, right? So like it's shocked a lot of people that Banton has gotten so many more minutes and he's gotten in the game before Flynn pretty much almost every game. Um he's a second round pick, so it is objectively surprising compared to like Flynn who's in his second year. Um, but I actually don't mind it. Like I'm not mad at Nick at all about it. And if he goes into the season with Banton as the starting point guard, I'm actually not going to be mad if like Flynn's in the G League getting reps there. Will you be?
I won't be mad. I don't know where I'm at on Flynn. I think starting Banton put more of a chip on Flynn's shoulder. And last year he had that chip and he flourished with it. So maybe it's a good thing. I also think that Banton's been doing well against preseason rosters where like the flow of the game is fast. There's not a lot of polished defenses out there. But today against the starters, we saw Banton really struggle on the half court. He really only has that like hezzy attack move, and it doesn't really work on a set defense. Although he split that pick and roll, which is really nice. But I just think he has less in his toolkit as a point guard leading the second unit, whereas Flynn can create a shot. And when the game slows down and you need that bucket in the half court, Flynn's going to get you that way more often than Banton is.
No, for sure.
So conversely, I wouldn't be upset if Banton were in the G League,
Yeah.
learning how to lead a team himself.
Right. No, I'm not even saying that this is what should happen or what will happen. Like if I were to guess, Flynn would definitely be the starting point, the backup point guard to start the season. But I don't think it's out of the question anymore. And I think like Banton is only gonna survive um in lineups that are well spaced and have like other smart players on the floor. Like you said,
Yeah.
in the lineups he struggled against today, he was also playing with third stringers. And he was being asked to, like you said, create his own shot. Like that's absolutely not his job at this point.
No.
His job is like Scotty Barnes. It's like make stuff happen in transition, playmaking in the half court. I really think he's a special playmaker. Like I'm really, really high on his playmaking. Flynn, for all the talk about him being like more of a pure point guard, I see him much more as like a bench, like a plug scorer
Oh
kind
yeah.
of thing. You
I
know,
wouldn't call him a pure point guard.
no, but I think last year people were. Uh, if Flynn went to the Atlanta Hawks and was told to play like high screen and roll 10 times a game with Clint Capella, I think he would like find his teammates and do a great job in that system.
Yeah.
But like in this system, he's really only shown the ability to like score. And I think that's going to be his role. And if he can do that well enough, like great, and he'll play. But I just I like the way Banton fits. Like when I see him play with Scotty Barnes, those two have a really nice chemistry. And they're just like a menace on defense, a menace in transition. The amount of playmaking on the floor, like this is a team that just last season really was lacking playmaking.
Stagnant.
You get Barnes and Banton, your two draft picks, and it's like a different team. It's
Yeah.
like the amount of playmaking on the floor is really high level, and Pascal hasn't even played.
No.
So
I
don't know. I
The
like
thing
it.
is scoring is going to be an issue, and and Flynn can solve that in the short term. I do think Flynn might feel a little self conscious. Like there's this like revolution happening with the Raptors roster by essentially drafting Achua, so 3, 6, 9 dudes, and then here's Flynn who's like 6'1", doing like the traditional pick and roll stuff, and I gotta wonder if he feels like the odd guy out here. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Nurse bounces though too. I could see Banton coming up and down, playing the same day with the 905 and then coming up to play with the Raptors for 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah, and I think like to start the season, he'll probably be in the G League. The format's different this season. There's like some sort of cup tournament until December, and then there's like a break, and then there's another full season. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Banton played the tournament with the 905 and then was actually a part of the Raptors for the rest of the year. I just think like he's closer than I thought to being a rotation guy. And yeah, like I said, his fit in the system is just he fits like a glove. And it's more that than skill. Like I'm really not saying he's like a perfect player. He literally doesn't have the two things the point guards like need, which is that he doesn't really have a tight dribble and he doesn't have an outside shot. And yet in this system, that doesn't actually matter that much because it's a defensive oriented team that likes to get out in transition.
Yeah.
So I like
like
his
you
fit.
said, him and Barnes out there just marauding the backcourt is so fun to watch.
Yeah. No, it's a really fun combo. I really like it.
Yeah.
That's about all the topics I had. What else? Anything that caught your eye this preseason?
Um, we kind of hit everything that I'm interested in. Um, yeah, no, I think we covered about it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to you about this. So where are you at it for this Raptors team? Like, I was just watching, first of all, preseason, I think we got really lucky. Like, we got 3 really good games in preseason, at least. Like, that for starved Raptors fans, this was a great preseason. But I feel like the vibes around this team are really good, and I feel like the team is a little better than a lot of people expected. So, like, after last season, I think it's just, like, so refreshing that this is the team we get to watch for 82 games. But where are you at with them in terms of, like, how good you think they're gonna be? Where are they gonna be good? Where are they gonna struggle? That kind of stuff.
Well, first of all, I wrote about this earlier about that it's nice to have a direction. Like we know what Masai is trying to accomplish, whether it'll happen or not based on like the development of all of our players and what ceiling guys like OG and Siakam can really reach. But we know where we're going now, and I think that's exciting. All of the guys that they're doing it with seem to be happy to be in Toronto. Seem to be happy to be doing what Nurse and Masai have constructed. Like these guys are bought in. Even Gary Trent Jr., who kind of seems like a dude who could give a shit as long as he gets his, he looks like he's bought in. So I think that's going to be fun. And as a fan, that's going to be really fun because you're going to just be in that intensity the whole game. Like if these guys are going wire to wire all 4 quarters, doesn't if we lose tight games, which we definitely are going to, when our offense kind of tightens up, it's still going to be so much fun to watch those games. I think their ceiling is 7th. I don't. I that 6 is so strong. I think Boston's really going to push this year, and I just don't think we can pull that many wins together. But I think 7th is respectable. And if you get a Milwaukee team or a Brooklyn team that's kind of limping, like we could surprise teams in the playoffs. So yeah, I don't know. Is that kind of like that's middle ground, I guess.
No, I'm with you. Our boy Zarar he wants to come in. He's in.
He's gonna chime in.
Zarar, we did talk about Barnes at the beginning, but we can.
Did you talk about Scotty Barnes or did you talk about Magic Johnson? Because I can't tell the difference.
Yeah, nice.
I can't tell the difference between Scotty Barnes and Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think that guy is like surprising me more. Like he's surprising me at different levels. Like he surprised me, and then he surprised me again, and then he surprised me again.
Yeah,
so he keeps doing that like a few times now, and I don't know, man. There's 2 plays that I noticed, and I'll show them both, and maybe you guys have already talked about it. But the first was him finding what's the guy's name? The overpaid guy. What's his name? Overpaid guy. Gary Trent Jr. Right. So this one here, like he, you know what I mean? He settles, picks up the dribble a little quickly, but still he's looking like there are guys that who when they come in those situations they panic when they pick up the dribble. But this guy has the wherewithal to sit there and kind of examine the floor even after the pickup dribble. And have you noticed that his teammates now sort of know that he's a passer? And when they're in that situation, they actually move extra hard to make themselves open. They wouldn't do that if like Ish Wainwright had the ball, or like if some other scrub had the ball. But because he's shown, I don't know what happened to Oren. I think he disagreed with me, so he's gone.
I'll take over. Welcome to the wrap up.
You know what I mean? Like it's like what do you call like a vicious circle, but a good thing where he's doing good things and his teammates are like, oh my god, like he can pass me the ball in that position. So they move more when they see him have the ball, and especially when he picks up his dribble because they know he's looking to make a good pass.
Yeah, and I said this earlier, but like the nice thing about that too is if it's a half court set where he's having problems, you can plug him in the post, or you can plug him in the elbow, or you can do a dribble handoff kind of where he's a little bit more stationary and he's going to make the right pass. Smaller guards are gonna can't really do anything with him passing because he's looking right over the defense.
And here's another one. Maybe you guys already did this, but man, this is pretty. Oh, by the way, the two jumpers. Oh, let's talk about the floater first. I think the floater, positive feedback loop. Thank you, buddy.
We did play this at the beginning, but
I mean, so Fred, if you're watching. If you're watching, Fred, that's what you need to do, buddy. You need to do that. This is the shot that Fred needs to.
What about the exact same thing, but it was a lob to Precious?
Yeah, that was a nice one. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to talk about Fred, and I want to see if you guys agree with me. I think Fred and Gary Trent, I've actually really liked both of their preseasons, and it's because neither of them are really focusing on scoring the ball. I feel like we know, Gary, we know he can shoot, score. Fred, we know he could shoot, score a little bit more. But Fred's really been just trying to organize the team and find guys. And Gary's been doing all the things you just don't expect from Gary, like getting in passing lanes and trying to take charges and shit like that. And it's just I'm impressed by these two guys because, it would have been very easy for Fred to come in preseason and be like, I'm the number one option until Siakam's back. And I was scared that was going to be the case. And instead, he's literally like, yeah, OG's the guy. That's surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit worried about Gary Trent, though.
Okay.
I don't know. This idea of him being instant scorer, I don't know that that's what we want for him. Like you said, he does a lot of other good things to fill that kind of role player role, especially if he's starting, right? He's probably the fifth guy I want trying to score on the starting lineup. So, but he's always trying to get his, and I wonder if that's going to change over the course of time.
Gary Trent,
I like his scoring.
Fifth guy in your
on the starter. Well, maybe the center, no, because Precious, but Van Vliet, OG, Siakam, I want them all scoring over him, and I just don't know that he doesn't play into that ball movement crazy style that Toronto is kind of set up, or he hasn't been as much.
No, but I think preseason he's showing signs, which is what I'm trying to say. Last season, you're right. Every time he got the ball, he looked for his own shot, and it often was a mid-range pull-up. But in preseason, he's moving the ball much better, and it seems like he's trying to fit the system a little bit more, and that is the goal. Beautiful ball movement and all that stuff, but it really wasn't the case last season. And I think this team is so offensively limited that they don't care how they're going to get points as long as they get points. And Gary, he doesn't look good doing it all the time, but he's a certified scorer. You have to give him that.
Yeah, I worry about his efficiency is all. But
yeah. No, he needs to cut down some of those long twos and just take them as threes. That I think is a way for the future.
I wanted to say with Van Vliet, I said this last podcast, maybe this is too easy, but he's kind of fitting into the Lowry role where last year you saw the weight of the offense on him and he struggled with it, but now he can kind of be the complementary piece. He can finish a short shot clock, or he can, do, fill those holes where it is, but it's not the focal point now.
Okay, hey, let's play a game. Okay, Adon, you're Nick Nurse. One of us can be Gary Trent Jr., and it's a 4:00 Outlook appointment. I showed up, and Nick Nurse wants to have a chat with Gary Trent Jr. Door closes. Gary Trent Jr. sits down. You're Nick Nurse. What do you got to tell Gary Trent Jr.? But you got to do it like you're talking to Gary Trent Jr. Yes, Coach.
I'll be right back.
Gary, Coach, look, buddy, you're a great player. We love to see you out there. We love to see the hustle, the heart. But you just got to stop with this dribble, spin, fadeaway jumpers with with not a single pass and with 3 seconds clicking down in the shot clock. Let's play into the system a little bit more.
Man, that's a very negative feedback for a player. I think you got to like build up the positive and then lay in the negatives at the
No,
end.
I'm
You
a
started
straight
off with
shooter.
like, huh?
I'm a straight shooter.
I don't know. I think you got to tell Gary Trent Jr. Um, what he thinks is lacking in his game, where he becomes as good a scorer as and Sam Folk talked about this with me, as DeMar. And I think, and if you look at his free throw rate and how often he gets to the line, I think that's the one part that he's got to improve. And I think what that means is that he's a little too willing to settle for that mid-range jumper or three
Sorry,
fairly
it's
early
not
in the clock.
it's not willing, it's desired.
Desire, yeah.
That's
okay.
what he wants. That's his game.
Yeah.
And there's times where that makes sense and where we need it. But like, yeah, he needs to work on getting to the rim, and he needs to work on shooting the three, like Oren was saying, especially when we have Siakam and OG, who are our newfound, playmakers.
Yeah. As for Fred, I think we might look back at this preseason as basically a preseason that Fred got as extended vacation. As a quote unquote veteran, it was more like a gesture of go take the preseason off, get fresh for the regular season. We need you for the long run. Don't worry about this preseason. He's got a spot earned on this roster. So anybody reading too much into Fred VanVleet's somewhat poor performance in preseason is basically overreading it. I don't think we need to look that deep into it.
No, I agree, and they made it very clear that OG was the focus of this preseason. To carry the load, and he did just that, which is great to see. Like I said, I think VanVleet makes so much sense as a tertiary scorer on this team. Yeah.
And a guy that struggled today, man. I think Oren's gone, so I think we'll end it here.
Okay.
We got to give this guy a little credit, man. Malachi Flynn has had I know you guys talked about him a little bit, but with sort of the game sort of hanging in the balance. I mean, this play right here, 1-on-1. Just to the rim for the and one. Yeah. Like if there's a good way to end the preseason for a guy who sort of struggled with it, I think this was definitely nice to see.
No, totally. He's a baller, and I think it'll be good for his confidence going into the regular season. I didn't want to say Sam Decker played a hell of a game, and I think this might be his last shot at the NBA. I feel like so it was a good way for him to go out, and he made what's his name look like a really, really bad contract. It was a tall white guy for Washington.
Oh, Bertrand's.
Yeah. He made that Bertans. He made that contract look real bad tonight.
Yeah, and you guys talked about this Flynn versus Banton, which is really interesting because it's sort of like how Fred had that poor preseason game against one opponent. I forget who it was. I think it was in Boston. Yeah, it was preseason. Like he had one game where he kind of
Houston. He had a bad
Philly. It was the second Philly game.
Okay,
where he kind of struggled against the length. It's sort of the same argument because there we were talking about Fred and I think Scotty or whoever else playing a point guard, a taller guy, and now we're talking about Banton and Flynn. And I think this is the sort of the internal struggle, the jihad, if you will, that the Raptors have to go through.
I don't know if we will.
This year, where they have to kind of decide on what style of play they want. But you know what I mean? It's a nice setup for the season, and I think we'll have this debate over and over again on which of these like lanky 6'9" dude or traditional point guard will
it's
play.
Very symbolic. Yeah, 100%.
Man, we got a lot of comments to get. Oh, yeah. Guru is on with you 80 mil.
Yeah, exactly. But Sam Decker is just like a shorter Bertans.
Yeah. All right, man. What's this one? I wish you could remember our team needs to be a wow. I mean, we couldn't re-sign him really.
Do we want to pay him 80 mil for 5 years? Is that what he got?
So the question is, would you rather pay Gary Trent Jr. or would you rather pay Norman Powell? Given the team's
I think I don't know. That's a tough one. I think Gary makes a little bit more sense. I don't know. I kind of miss Norm. I kind of miss him.
Good question.
I think it remains to be seen. We got to see how Gary fits with a healthy Siakam and an OG.
Yeah. And so I'd say it's a great question. I'd go with Gary Trent only because Norm's ceiling was sort of known.
Yeah, exactly.
And Gary's is still kind of up in the air, settling for mid-range jumpers notwithstanding.
Yeah. Oren, do you wish we still had Normie, or are you happy with Gary Trent? You're on mute.
Oren's happy. Oren's just happy.
He's in his
Oren's happy he's buddies with Nick Nurse now.
Yeah.
Just casually dropping his name.
Hello,
hey, by the
hello.
way, you skipped a wrap-up episode the other day. Could you explain to me what question you had to ask Nick Nurse to skip this prestigious show? Go ahead, ask that question.
Oh, I actually got a great answer, and I posted on Twitter, and lots of people liked it. So they didn't agree with your.
What did you ask him? Tell me.
I said, it was about something we talked about during this podcast, the Malachi Flynn against Delano Banton stuff, and I wrote about how Banton's like a better system fit, but Malachi's a more skilled player. So I was just like, how does Banton fit in your system, and what does he have to do to get in the rotation, basically? And he gave me a long answer.
It was a good question, and the answer wasn't trite. Like, he really broke it down.
What did he say? What did he say?
He said like the things he has to do to fit in the system is like defensively, he just needs to learn the scheme. He's still like he has these college habits in his head that he still needs to get out of his head and learn the scheme.
What was that? The weak side. He was at the back line. He was talking about how like you in college you overplay under the hoop, but in NBA you can't give up that back line.
Yeah, I don't know. He got back cut, and he was saying they play like I think he's saying they play higher in college, like the back line.
Yeah.
They definitely play higher in college.
Yeah, and then he was saying that he likes his size, the fact that he can like take a rebound or a block and then take it the length of the court. And the biggest thing he said, I guess, like that is like, I don't know. He said like Banton's improved the most out of anyone since we got him, and he said he's been working on his shot like crazy. And of course, Nick believes in everybody's shot, but he was saying he believes in the shot, which I don't. Like, the shot looks it's worse than Barnes' shot for sure, right? Like, I trust Barnes' shot to get to like a decent percentage more than Banton's. But I'm not gonna lie, the Norm question, I often find myself keeping myself up at night, just the dead hours of the winter, just being like, why is Norman Powell not on this team anymore? Like, I think Powell, I don't know. I think Powell made really good strides, and like we developed him, and he was just part of the group. And like the years, I guess, is the main thing that you'll point to. But like, what are we doing with our free agency money? Like, if this wasn't the summer we spent money on free agents, are we ever attracting free agents? I guess I'm just like skeptical now about that. So I would kind of rather have Powell too. But the point I was making earlier is that like I was worried about Gary up until the last two preseason games. It's kind of lowered my worry because it looks to me like he's really trying to fit in and do some things that don't include taking pull-up shots. And like, if he's going to buy into the Raptors system, then I trust like a 22-year-old to improve, or I don't know if he's that young, but like I trust him to improve a little bit more and fit into the system more and just do some of the things that Norm learned to do as he grew in that system. So I'm no longer like as staying up as many nights about it.
He's also 6'5", and Norm's 6'3". Like, that does make a difference when you have Van Vliet in the backcourt.
I have a question for you guys. I don't know if we're actually done talking about the game, but we can get back to the game. But what's more annoying to you guys, the Kyrie Irving discourse or the Ben Simmons discourse? Like, because frankly, like both of them are just a topic of every podcast, and it's getting really annoying. But what's worse at this point?
I'll answer first. The Kyrie is worse because it's also more representative of the way we're treating the issue. Like, the Nets released their statement and they didn't use the word vaccination. They said like able to fully participate. The same way LeBron says that it's like, or all of these players, even Van Vliet said it in his interview, like it's a personal choice. And it is a personal choice, but there's a greater context to that, in which case that there's a social responsibility we all have. And if you're a basketball player where like you have millions of followers, like you have a social responsibility to get vaccinated. And I think the NBA has dodged around that. And I feel like the NHL has taken more of an explicit approach. Like, you're not vaccinated, you're not playing. So yeah, I think I'm annoyed by how this is being treated, and Kyrie's recent release about like representing the underrepresented. Like, that's the antithesis of what vaccinations are supposed to do. They're supposed to protect the vulnerable. So
yeah, I don't mind the. I think with Kyrie, the annoying part to me is that, like, on media day, he was being really snark, and he was like, all the information will come out at the proper time. He made it seem like he had some grand plan. Clearly he didn't, because now he's not playing games with the Nets. And also now he's going through the media to release these statements when he called the media pawns just a few months ago. And also, if you want to be a spokesman for the voiceless, you have to actually speak. You can't just let people are going to speculate if you don't actually say what your like plans are, and you just like stay behind this curtain that he's been staying for. But actually for me, it's the Ben Simmons situation, because I find it much less interesting. At least I find the vaccine stuff is an interesting topic to debate. The Ben Simmons situation, I think we just got to like call it what it is. Like, Philly, that's a fucking trash fire of an organization.
not
It
anymore,
really
man.
is.
They're back.
Yeah, are they? I'm worried about them. Like, people are really assuming they're gonna like Embiid is an MVP candidate, but I think the margin that people think is actually not as big as it is, and I think Philly could lose like a good amount of games to start the season without
Well, I
that.
mean, if I have to say, I mean, I generally don't listen to people who think the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
So whatever the hell comes out of Kyrie's mouth just generally goes into the spam folder of my mind.
But the question is, what is more annoying to hear people talk
I mean,
about?
I don't even hear Kyrie. That's the thing. I mean, it's just automatically transferred into spam. Like, do you ever go into your spam folder and read your spam just to see what's going on? No, you don't. You ignore it.
Yeah.
And that's what. And it's also weird that he's sort of he's pretending to be some sort of an activist.
Well,
Like,
he is, though. He does do a lot of good shit, but then he does stuff like this where you're like, what?
I don't understand it. So Ben Simmons for sure is the more one that I'm paying more attention to, is it more annoying? No. Kyrie is definitely more annoying if I had interfaced with the bullshit, but. Ben Simmons, yeah, that situation needs to get resoled.
Okay, but at least,
but good for Ben Simmons for foregoing money. At least he's putting that behind his.
Well, not anymore.
No,
not anymore. What happened there?
They both are. They're both foregoing money.
Didn't he knock on their door? Isn't he back?
Yeah, he might be.
The thing, you know, what also
Philly.
annoys me about Ben Simmons is that I feel like he's not valued anymore. Like Ben Simmons is not worth Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby. He's arguably not even worth OG Anunoby, but he's also a generational defensive talent.
Yeah. Like he's worth Fred. I'll say that.
He's worth Fred, and I mean, I told you like multiple firsts and Fred. I think, like,
yeah,
Ben Simmons is a phenomenal player. There's no question about it.
But he's not a superstar, and that is part of the annoyance with me, which is he's literally led news or basketball news for 2 months now, and he's not he's at least Kyrie is a superstar. Like, Ben Simmons, he's not even a superstar, and all we're doing is talking about him, and it's just like, can we please move on to something more interesting? Like, this is just all this is a team handling a situation really, really poorly, and a player not really understanding the consequences of sitting out, and really just like incompetence on two sides. And we're focusing on it so much. Like, we don't need to focus on incompetence.
No, I agree. It's just because it was I guess it was September.
Yeah, it was off season stuff.
That's what it was.
Nothing better to talk about.
I gotta go. It's preseason's over. It's done. I mean, by the way, is it kind of weird to have like an 8-day break between the last game of the regular season and the other way around? I mean, that seems a bit.
Yeah, but I wouldn't worry. We're playing the Wizards, dude. Like, I wouldn't worry too much about that opener.
Thanks to you guys, I haven't been so goddamn focused on preseason before.
Honestly,
Okay,
it was a
I'm
good
out of here.
preseason.
It was
Between
fun.
the
Bye-bye.
Celtics game, Laters are the Celtics game was sick. The first Philly game was sick. The Rockets game I enjoyed just because the Raptors smacked them front to. And today was a good game too.
This is what I'm saying though. Barnes makes these games fun.
He
Like
does.
that first game in Philly where it looked like Champagne and Banton
Champagne. I don't know.
Champagne.
I don't think you
Anyway,
pronounce the G. I think it's
I think you
champagne.
do.
Oh fuck, I don't know.
I don't think it's the French region. Anyway, him and Banton, the three of them, like they were just whirling dervishes flying everywhere, and it was so fun to watch. And like I mean, that was a constant with Banton and Barnes at least throughout the
See,
whole
but
preseason.
that group that you're talking about in the first preseason game that went on that huge run, that is why, back to this point, Banton, I could actually see him, like, I would not be shocked if he starts the season getting minutes, because that he fits into the it's a bench mob 2.0 kind of thing, right? Where they want to play really fast, they want to get stops, they want to run in transition. Like, he fits into that a lot better than Flynn does, I
Yeah.
think. And so I love his fit with Barnes, and I think they could honestly like be a part of the bench group.
Bench bandits, man. Bench bandits.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get that
Because
going with you.
you know how like a stagecoach is riding down the mountain, and then a bunch of dudes on horses come and rob the stagecoach. Cowboys, Anyway,
No, I actually don't
okay.
know what a stagecoach is. I thought you meant at first like a theater
No,
coach, like an actor coach.
no, you didn't watch. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Bench
No,
banditos, I like that.
yeah. If
But
well,
yeah, I think
that would be if they were like small, though. I think Bandito, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I do think you test run Banton in the first bench unit, and then if it's not working, then you throw Flynn out there.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah. Yeah.
think you
It's
have the
true.
versatility with both.
Yeah. Yeah. Before Zarar interrupted us, I was gonna say that I'm with you. I like Boston. I think they have a sneaky good team. I think the Raptors ceiling is probably like the 6th seed, but you know, I'm not gonna lie. I went home from that Rockets game yesterday and I made some very homer bets because I was just like, this team is not winning 34 games. Like, the Raptors are winning more than 34 games this season. Like, I think their over is a really good bet. OG for most improved, pretty
Dude,
good
I
odds. You're getting
locked
good
that in
odds there.
in August.
You know what? Let me tell you guys one more bet. If you're really like, if you really want to like throw away some money and just like it's probably not gonna happen, but if it does, you're gonna make a lot. Is Kyle Lowry assists leader? Like, I understand there's a lot of guys like who are probably gonna get more assists than Lowry, but he's playing with really, really good finishers. And his role is clearly back to his role in the Kawhi year, which is like he's the playmaker and he's not really looking for his own shot. His odds, it's like 20-1 for Kyle to be the assist leader this season. So I'm just saying, homer centric bets for you guys. We might do this recurring segment.
Oh, I am down for that. I make the worst bets, but I make them often.
Yeah,
I
that's
I was
that's the
actually
strat.
thinking like if Cade has like a mediocre season
Yeah.
and Green just kind of fade and Kevin Porter Jr. just like overshadows Green's. I thought Green was going to be
Oh,
a
I like.
major volume scorer, but I feel like Porter is just stealing that thunder. Like if the two of them kind of have a ho hum year and Scotty Barnes is run around 14, 5, and 5 with like 3 stocks or something, like I don't know,
Yeah.
rookie of the year for him might not be that far fetched of a bet.
It's a good bet, but I think Suggs is the other guy who could get rookie of the year.
Yeah.
But I think watching the Rockets, as part of that same betting spree, I took the Rockets under. I think it's 27 wins, but it's just like there's some talent there, but the way they played yesterday was so much ISO ball, and they look so disorganized, like embarrassingly disorganized on the defensive end. I was just like, this team, they're not, because they're also going to go into tank mode at the end of the year. You know that. So
you can't run a Tice Wood front
you
court.
can't. No,
But
Tice is not a 4.
What was nice about Barnes is he kind of counters these playmaking power forwards, like a guy like Woods, guy like Anthony Davis, obviously
Horford.
Like Barnes isn't going to stop them, or Tobias Harris even to some degree, but he's really going to make it hard for them because their dribbles aren't as tight or their handles aren't as tight as against a guard like Barnes who can kind of size them up at the same time.
No, I think it's a good bet, and it'll depend a lot on like if the Raptors are like the 7th seed or something, that'll surprise a lot of people. And if Barnes is a rotation guy the whole season, then I think the Raptors have to play well for Barnes to win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, Bill Simmons is a believer in like the narrative, and to take it or leave it with Bill Simmons, but I do believe in that. And Scotty's getting the narrative already. Like ESPN's already talking about him, so that's
surprising amount for a Raptor. Yeah. It's a funny like storyline I've been watching. It's like I think Dragic is just like, it really is different here. Like you don't get any fucking calls on this team. Like every time he goes up, he doesn't get a call, and he's looking at the refs and he's just like, what is going on? And I think he's just like slowly learning that like he plays for the Raptors now and not the Heat. And like I genuinely, this is a homer take, but I genuinely think that's like a thing. Like the Raptors get officiated pretty poorly.
I agree.
And and Dragic is learning.
I recall the bubble playoffs feeling that way so much. So.
Yeah. You would think it would change after the championship, but no. It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, man. I think that's it for us.
That was a full hour.
We did an hour. Damn. Yeah. We did it. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Yeah.
It was a great audience we had, and be sure to give us a like on YouTube, share the video if you really like it. And come back on October 20th after the Raptors play the Wizards, because we will be back here, or 2 people will be back here recapping the game for you.
Thanks for having me, Oren.
No, thanks for joining. Goodbye.